afternoon, good morning. Welcome, everyone, to episode 46 of A Girl Like Me Live. I am so excited to be here today. I have been really looking forward to this conversation today as we talk about combating HIV stigma in beauty and wellness spaces. And I'm very excited to be doing it today with my colleague, Bridgette Picou. I don't know, everybody know you, but you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
I mean, it says everything there. I'm Bridget. I'm with the Well Project. Cece is my girl. We gonna make this conversation happen. We're both excited about this. This is one of those conversations that doesn't get had often enough, and there's so many more questions than there are answers. So happy to be here with you, friend.
Yay. So I don't know. I know that I've been navigating this virus for like 18 years, and we'll dig more into all of these experiences later from us in the community. Um, but like I haven't stopped getting my nails done since. And there have been times when I've gone into the nail shop and been like, especially at the beginning, like, should I say something? If I say something, is it going to like offend the other people that are here? And I would like to say that that feeling has gotten better over the years, but I found myself in one of those situations like last year sometimes, and it was like, dang, is this like internalized HIV stigma that I'm going through right now, or what? And so we're going to get into like all of those types of discussions today, and I'll open it up with like, how does HIV impact how we feel about what we feel about beauty? Like, I don't know if you want to start, open it up. I can
I'm
say it
I
always
am
okay for me.
no, I love that you said internalized stigma because it's a thing. And it's a thing that is very insidious and it lives under the surface. And I think for most of us, because you're not the first person that I've heard say something like that, and I felt it myself. I think it rears its ugly head in unexpected ways. And you're kind of left like, wait a minute, I thought I was past all of this. But it just goes to show that HIV is not a linear journey, right? It's an ebb and flow kind of thing. But instead of babbling, let me answer your question. So when I first was diagnosed with HIV, I went through this little not an identity crisis. That's way too dramatic. But I did have to go through this thing where I had to like assess how I felt about myself. I was a little girl who never really felt pretty. I always thought of myself as being smart. When I was a teenager, as a younger woman, I'm refusing to embrace this aging thing. As a younger woman, um, I used to hear fairly often that I was sexy, right? I had a sexy walk, or I had a nice body. And so that also does nothing for, self image when it comes to feeling pretty or attractive. And so when I got diagnosed with HIV, I was like, in my mind, was like, okay, so do you really think that you're smart and that that's enough to get you by? Or do you prefer to think of yourself as sexy and think that that's the thing, right? Because now all of a sudden I'm not sexy anymore because I have this virus. And so there was a kind of a space where I had to like come together and figure out who I was and um, how I felt about my level of attractiveness. Unfortunately, that was very short lived. Thank God. Um, but I don't think I'm alone in having to examine um, not just whether or not I'm going to be attractive to someone else because I have the virus, because we already know that stigma means probably not in most cases. But I really wanted to still feel attractive to myself. And that was one of the first things that I had to like work my way through in my diagnosis. I mean, unfortunately, now I'm in a space where I'm still sexy. I still think that I'm pretty. And idea of beauty standards in the world, um, and what that looks like behind the stigma of HIV. What about you?
Oh yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about so much, and I really appreciate that you started there because, like, there for many of us, I see that we have Marie in the comments who says that she was Maritza, 39-year-old born positive, is a woman who was not born with HIV. Like I do remember a time in my life when I was HIV negative, and like what was I dealing with self-esteem wise then, and then the diagnosis just like exacerbates whatever feelings I had. Like now I'm having to fight past, you know, sorry, Zuri's come to visit.
Oh,
But
hi, Zuri.
having to push past those feelings of not feeling pretty or feeling like I wasn't living up to what other folks thought was pretty. And at some point, I'm really having to make a decision. Like, okay, now I'm really not. If I listen to the world, HIV, as you said, probably isn't attractive, and the stigma of it all. But I still got the rest of my life to live. So what am I going to do to navigate the rest of this life? And I think it was with the information that I had walking into my HIV diagnosis, and that was the media that I had seen. People were looking sickly. It wasn't that people were like out living and showing that there was a life, a quality of life to be lived after an HIV diagnosis. If you were to Google at that time, you looking at a lot of pictures of like skin lesions and, people looking frail and all of those things. So I knew that I didn't want that to become my story. And once I figured out through medication and treatment and all of those things that I was going to be able to live, like, okay, well, we could be cute and live too. And, that's where like taking care of yourself and, those services that we depend on to keep that moving. Yes, just a moment.
Sorry, I muted myself because I see Joe in the chat said, "Is there a storm happening in the background?" And it might be my fan for my computer. I don't know. It hasn't
No,
happened
there's
before, but
certainly a storm in my background. I will keep
okay,
myself
all right.
muted.
No, okay, then we're good. So then I don't have to try to remember to unmute myself because everybody that knows me and Zoom and mute and all of the things. Anyway, um, but yeah, opportunistic infections, things like the Kaposi's like lesions and the wasting and all of that. We have, for the most part, left that behind with all of the advances, right? That happens with medication. That's not to say that it doesn't still happen, that people are not impacted by that. And in no way are we trying to minimize, what that is and what that feels like and the lingering effects of what that has on people. You mentioned the lifetime survivor in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Maritza. We appreciate you being here. But, sometimes they have like long-term effects from having taken medications in the beginning, like the extra fat deposits in places and the lipodystrophy that happens and all of these things that are a direct result of HIV and the virus itself impact how we feel about ourselves. And that's it's not just women. We are women focused, but it happens to men too. And I don't think we talk enough about the impact of societal beauty standards and what that does to our mental health. So, another reason I'm glad to be having this conversation. I'm actually really excited to kind of jump into the beauty spaces part of it, and talking about that. You mentioned getting your nails done. Listen, I will eat cup of soup and drink water if it comes down to a choice between or used to be, since I do my nails myself now. But if it was a choice between getting my nails done and a fancy restaurant, guess what's going to happen? Because that's part of it, right? Like, I love the feeling of having my nails done. It was a struggle for me when I started nursing, and couldn't wear my nails. Woof, child, that was devastating for me. Um, and now that I'm not in the clinic anymore and I can get my nails done, and I've started doing my nails myself, I don't have to have the conversation about whether or not I need to disclose or what happens if they nip me, when they're doing my nails. But as we start to jump into that, I want to kind of level set a little bit about the virus itself, because I think lack of understanding about the HIV virus is what drives and fuels a lot of the stigma and a lot of the stigmatizing, um, a lot of what people don't understand about how the virus works and why they're so fearful. That's what I was searching for, is trying to put that towards, and why people are so fearful about being in spaces where people living with HIV have been or might be. Um, I just want to acknowledge that Marie put in the chat that she has lipodystrophy due to medication side effects from the early 90s, and she struggles to get injections covered by insurance. And that is so valid. And thank you for bringing that up and making that part of the conversation, because that's another thing that impacts what we can do about how we feel about ourselves, right? The steps that we can take to mitigate what we feel is unattractive, or ways in which we can improve how we feel about ourselves. So, thank you for that. Um, so, level setting the virus. We know that HIV um, is a formidable opponent because we don't have a cure for it yet, right? Like, and that is part of the fear that people have. It's uncurable. In the body, HIV is king of the jungle because of the way that it is able to um, get into our DNA and how it changes our DNA, and the fact that it hides in all of these tissues and, your spleen and your gut and all of these places that can't be reached. And so that's one of the reasons, the major reason why we haven't found a cure for HIV yet. So inside the body, the virus is brilliant, it's smart, it's strong, it's healthy. And it feels very strange for me to describe it that way. Um, but that's what it is. But outside the body, the virus is a punk outside the body. It can't live, it can't survive. Within minutes to hours, once you have a fluid that the virus is transmissible through. So let's be clear about, I hate when people just say bodily fluids. It's way too broad, right? Snot is a bodily fluid, but HIV doesn't live in snot and is not transmissible through snot. Tears are a bodily fluid. But again, HIV is non-transmissible through tears, right? And never has been from the beginning. So specific bodily fluids are what we're talking about. So sperm, vaginal fluids, anal fluids, blood, breast milk. And these things are mitigated when a person is undetectable, right? So that's another little layer of it. But to circle back to my initial point, outside of the body, HIV does not survive. It needs the organic material, the fluid, in order to be able to thrive and reproduce and what have you. And as soon as you take those fluids outside the body, the virus doesn't have a way to reproduce. It starts to immediately break down. There have been cases where you can find HIV in let's say, for example, in a spot of blood, but the virus that's there is non-viable, right? So within hours, it starts to break down and becomes non-viable, non-transmissible. So that's number one. It does not survive well on surfaces. Hepatitis, on the other hand, can live for days to weeks on surfaces, specifically hepatitis B, hepatitis C, right, on surfaces. Hepatitis A can live on food and in water and things like that for a long, long, long time. Um, but that is something that people need to think about. You're scared of something that as soon as it's outside of our body, a person living with HIV, as soon as it's outside of our body, it's a little punk, right? So what are you worried about? It's because there's so little understanding of that fact, and so little understanding of the fact that it does need organic, specific fluids in order to be able to reproduce and all of that. I feel like I talked a lot just now, but did it make sense?
No, thank you, because I think that's a good space to start at, that understanding. I've always heard that, when HIV gets out the body, that it can't survive. So being able to understand that from an even deeper lens, because I'm thinking like where in spaces where I'm at where blood might come. Maybe if the lady nicks me with the Dremel too hard or the foul, then it might be some blood. But does the person coming after me getting their nails done have to worry about being exposed to HIV because of that? And like, no, like first of all, it has to have a way to enter into your body directly, and by the time that happens the virus is probably already dead. And like we should be following universal precautions anyway, because I feel like if universal precautions were followed, you treat everyone as if they're each situation. I don't know if sterile is the right word, but yes, I want you to use new needles on me. I want you to use clean tools on me, as I would expect that you do for the next person. So where is the possibility for like our fluids to cross each other if you're doing everything right?
Yeah. Um, so universal precautions is another thing I think that people get confused and don't really fully understand. Um, Universal precautions is a level setting for treating everyone the same. And what that says is that in the presence of bodily fluids, now we're talking about any kind of bodily fluid at this point, right? In the presence of bodily fluid, you take protective measures. So, nursing lens, because that's the best examples I know how to give. You come into the clinic and I sit you down to do your vitals. I'm going to take your blood pressure, I'm going to take your temperature, um, and your respiratory rate. I don't need to wear gloves for that. There's no bodily fluids present, right? I'm touching your skin. Even if you have a cut or a scratch or a scab, I'm not worried about that, right? Because my skin is my protective layer. Your skin is your protective layer. Even if you have a scab, that means that it's healing, and the scab over it is the protection from to the wound for what's going on underneath, and for me as I'm touching you, right? So there's no bodily fluids present or possible, then I don't need to worry about it. If I take you in the exam room and now I'm going to give you a shot, or I'm going to ask you for a sample for an STI test. Well, I'm going to wear gloves because there's a possibility at that point that I might come into contact with a bodily fluid. Maybe I give you a shot and you're on a blood thinner, and so you start to bleed. Or you hand me the sample, or I'm taking the sample. Obviously, I'm near parts and pieces and I want to have gloves on. Again, not just to protect me, but to protect you from whatever I might have on my hands, right? And then the next level, of course, is surgery, where there's definitely, if we're cutting you open, then there's definitely, absolutely the presence of some type of bodily fluid. So we're going to want to wear gloves and a gown, maybe a mask if we're worried about splashing, protective eye covering. But at the end of the day, if there's no bodily fluids, then there's no need to wear gloves, and there's no need to panic about touching someone, right? Or coming into contact with someone. Because again, like you said, and to reinforce, your skin is your first protective barrier. And if there's no open cuts or wounds, then you don't have to worry about what you might come into contact with. And so that specifically brings up, like you were talking about, needles. So tattooing. If you have a good tattoo artist and you're in a place that is about their business, they understand universal precautions and they're not using the same equipment in between patients or in between people coming in to do tattoos. It's not like you sit in the chair and as soon as you get up, the next person sits down and they use the same needle. Same thing with going to the nail shop. Yes, they have the drill that they use and their files, but you should be paying attention and seeing that they are using disinfectant. Should be in plain view. You should be able to see them take it right out of the disinfectant to be able to use on you. And so there is a responsibility for the place that you are at to practice um, good cleanliness and sterile procedures. There is a responsibility on us as a person, whether we're living with HIV or not, to verify whether or not, ask a question. Are you using sterile stuff? Did you clean that before the last patient? You can ask that. That's a perfectly valid question. Hey, is that fresh needles and fresh ink that you're using on me? I should be able to see you open the package, right? To prove to me that it's new and fresh. And so those are the ways that we can mitigate some of those circumstances. So given that, I don't feel pressed to tell anybody that I'm living with HIV, regardless of what the procedure is that I'm having.
Let's talk about it, because when you walk in the shop, right, the tattoo shop, I've gotten about maybe 3 or 4 tattoos since I've been living with, and I've handled each one differently. I feel like I was at a different place of navigating the diagnosis. So, like, I have not said anything before, because it asks on the form, like, are you, and I hate those forms. They're formal, turn me away. But this is what we're gonna walk in there. They're gonna ask you all these questions, and then one of the questions is, "Are you living with HIV?" I selected yes the last time, and they still saw me, and nobody looked at me weird. I was sort of anticipating that though. Like, I was anticipating that I was going to select yes, and then they were going to sit me in a chair, and then everybody was going to be all in gowns and looking at me weird. And that was the opposite experience that I had. Like, they got in, everything was clean, and between me and the next person that was being tattooed, they changed this stuff. Like, that made me feel more comfortable, and it made me feel more confident. But I know that our brains do these things of like trying to make predictions of like what is going to happen and start responding to that ahead of time. So that may stop one person from going to even try to go get a tattoo. I know that I here in the United States, I've gotten one. I know Joe, she talks a lot about her tattoos experiences, and she lives in India, and I'm not sure what it's like around the world, but scientifically, if the if things are being changed out, the needles are new and clean, then it shouldn't, it's nothing to worry about. But that internalized stigma again, we was talking about, I don't tag none of the people I get my services done from, because I never want nobody to stigmatize them because they're seeing me there. I would never want to negatively impact somebody like that. That's, and
Yes.
that's so messed up.
Yes. Yeah. I'm the same way. And I've gotten more conscious of it. And that's the crazy thing, I think, um, to realize is that people living with HIV don't just have to look out for ourselves and navigate the virus for ourselves and deal with stigma for ourselves. We do find ourselves looking out for the next person, right? Part of the reason that I was quiet about my status for so long is because I didn't want people harassing my family about my status, right? Or putting anyone in my family in a position of having to defend me. And it's kind of the same thing as what you're talking about. Now that I'm way more vocal, were I to get a tattoo, I would be the same, another tattoo, because Lord knows I want one. I have several. But I wouldn't, tag or talk about who did it for exactly that reason, to protect them. So we're always having to not just protect ourselves, but protect the next person. And it shouldn't be that way. Um, I think that, um, when it comes to these kinds of things, we can talk until we're blue in the face. And that's sometimes it feels like that's what we're doing, is talking until we're blue in the face. But until people really understand it and want to understand it, I think we're still going to run into these challenges. I had a terrible experience with an OBGYN, which is not a beauty space, but finding out that I had HIV. And um, when I tell you that man had on a gown facing forward, a gown facing backwards, gloves, goggles, a cap, booties to do a pap smear. Like, come on, bro. You're tripping. You're tripping. But
No,
these are,
that's not even funny. What did that feel like?
I cried in my car. I cried. I felt never, ever, ever from the beginning of my diagnosis did HIV make me feel dirty. But having him treat me that way was the first time I felt dirty. The first time I felt um, like I was hazardous. And girl, I boo-hoo cried. Like boo-hoo cried in my car for like 30 minutes after that appointment. Um, but that is, and I still I get triggered when I have to go and have have a pap smear done, or have any type of appointment where there's going to be um, intimate. I have an IUD right now that needs to come out. And it's been in there too long because I'm traumatized at the idea of going and having it taken out. Right. Um, and I would imagine, and I know that that is how some of us feel when we have to approach going to get our hair done, or, the first couple of times you go to get your nails done after your diagnosis, and going to get a tattoo or going to get a facial. That whole debate about, do I tell you, do I not tell you? And maybe, um, you know, I'm the type of person who doesn't mind disclosing, and I would rather you know than not know. Because I've gotten work done where I've been upfront, like, hey, I'm living with HIV. Is that okay? Does that bother you? But once you have a stigmatizing experience, it makes it that much harder to disclose the next time and to tell the next person that this is what the situation is. So that is the other thing I think that we need to be conscious of when we are disclosing our status in spaces. That you're going someplace anticipating you're going to come out looking fly. Because ain't nothing like getting your
Feeling
hair done and then
good.
bouncing and behaving, and your shoulders are coming up and you got that swag, and then you walk in and you disclose and somebody acts a fool, and it changes the whole, like, you're messed up for forever after that. It takes you weeks to recover from something like that. And so we have to be conscious as people. How confident are you in your ability to deal with the situation? How is it going to make you feel afterwards if they reject you, if they are stigmatizing towards you, right? So being in a space morally where you want to disclose and where you want to talk about it, um, may be a whole canyon difference away from how you feel afterwards if you're not mentally prepared for the stigma.
I could tell you this. I ain't know what to do because we work in this. I do HIV work every day of my life, and sitting in a nail shop, that's one of the conversations that come up. What type of work do you do? I do HIV work, and then sometimes it naturally goes into. Sometimes I have to restrain myself from, disclosing my status, and I'm sitting in a position in the pedicure chair. The young girl, we ain't. I haven't been to this nail shop many times, but the conversation's going on and on, and talking about the importance of testing, and she's telling me that she don't need to get tested because she in a relationship, and I'm having this conversation with her sister to sister. I feel like it is, and so I end up disclosing. I don't know at what point of the. I feel like it was midpoint of the pedicure. She stopped talking to me. There was a visual stank face the rest of the appointment. Every time I go in there, she act like she don't know me. She don't. In my head, is like it's because I disclosed to her. She ain't had to say it to me, but she did. And then I'm like going back trying to find spaces to beat myself up for like, Dad, I shouldn't have said nothing, or Dad, that was messed up to tell her while she in the middle of doing your feet because it sort of left her in an impossible situation. But that's that internalized stigma again speaking, because I know that she wasn't, there was no chance of her acquiring HIV from me at that moment. So the only thing you are afraid of is the fact that I told you I was living with HIV. So, but that's a lot of mental gymnastics to do around. I just want my feet done and I want my fingernails done and go on about the rest of my day. But I'm still thinking about that now, and it's been like a year ago. A
Yeah,
year ago.
it sticks with you. Um,
Yeah.
Louise says
Exactly
going
what
for
it
beauty
is.
treatments, facial should feel relaxing, like self-care. Instead, I would feel so anxious that I wouldn't be welcome. And I think that what Louise says just kind of underscores what we're talking about. No matter how we've been talking about HIV freely for years now, a different amount of years for both of us, but for years, same thing with Louise. Um, and advocating for your community teaches you how to advocate for yourself, or vice versa. Advocating for yourself teaches you how to advocate for other people. But that internalized stigma is always a running thread through these conversations. The thread might be, you know, silkworm thin, or it might be, you know, tie an anchor around a rope thick at various times. But it's always something that we have to deal with. And I think that really doing some internal work on how you feel about yourself. I say all of the time when it comes to disclosure, the way that you feel about yourself and HIV and living with the virus and who you are with HIV has a lot to do with how you disclose to other people and the way that other people will react to your disclosure. You can't control everybody's behavior. You can't control the way that people feel, like in your situation with the nail tech. Um, you were just being you, right? And trying to help this girl out. Um, it's like a when you're talking about it, I was in my head, I was like, oh, you're gonna get this work and you're gonna learn this lesson, right? I'm going to teach you. It don't matter if you're in a relationship or not. This is what it is, right? But it still leaves that lingering effect of how do I do, like, moving forward with this? How do I do it? Does it change the fact that maybe next time I might not disclose? Um, but then that's not fair because people need to know, right? I don't know. It is a really, it takes a lot of head work and hard work um, to figure it out. But I have always been on the side of disclosure is your choice. Disclosure is about your own internal feelings, your own internal moral compass, your own internal um, level of comfort. I don't have to tell anybody that I'm living with HIV, not because I'm undetectable. I felt that way before U equals U was a thing, right? I tell people about my status to try to help them, to try to, help them understand. It helps me stay settled in my spirit and with who I am to disclose. I genuinely feel like the person that I acquired HIV from knew and didn't give me a choice. And so I always feel like I want to give people the choice. And some of that I think is tied a little bit to internalized stigma. But there's no right or wrong way to do it. People who are not living with HIV and who are very, very high on their moral high horse feel like the responsibility is always with the person living with HIV. And I disagree with that. You have as much responsibility for your own health as I do. And so if you don't want to ask the question and you don't want to, consider your own safety, why is that my responsibility? I'm taking care of what I need to take care of. I'm taking my meds. I'm going to my appointments. I've educated myself. Why do I have to take responsibility for your negativity?
Period. Marie said exactly. Look, and then another, because I'm crazy. So the next time, it was another nail experience where my nail, it needed to come off. That joint needed to come off and heal because it was a little exposed. And the girl talked to me.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was one of them. And I just kept going. And she talking about if it's bleeding, we not gonna be able to do it. So I was like, you do that for everybody. I, she was like, yeah, because we shouldn't do it when it's bleeding. Of course, my head went straight to is because she knows I'm living with HIV. Now she want to protect my nail all of a sudden. But no, realistically, Ciarra, they should not be working on no nail that is exposed. That's a damn a universal precaution.
There you go. And so that calls to mind that we have personal responsibility, right? Like we got to take responsibility. And she's right. There's several reasons they shouldn't work on your nail if it's exposed and bleeding. It's not just, the possibility of HIV, but the other possibility is that they do something, you get some of that stuff in your bloodstream, you get an infection, you get sepsis, you can sue them because they've done right, they've gone against what they know they're supposed to do, they've gone against procedure and done something, and now you about to die because you septic. Come on.
It wasn't worth it.
Listen, we got to pick our
Wait.
battles.
Oh, I saw Joe has a couple of comments. This one, I know that facials are a big thing in like surgery, even in the community. She was saying she was turned down by many cosmetologists and beauty estheticians from having a vampire facial, which was once a trend in India. I guess it was a blessing for me anyway, not having that done either.
It
Uh,
was a thing here for a long time too, Joe. Vampire facials, and there actually was a story of some folks who um, presumably, and I say presumably because we don't know, and these people don't know what their HIV status was prior to, right? Because sometimes you can live with the virus for a long time. I'm not going to go off in a tangent about that. But there were folks who presumably acquired HIV from vampire facials here in the States, and it was like a big, huge thing. But it turns out that this was an unlicensed clinic that was doing these things. The people there didn't really have experience with what they were doing. They weren't using universal precautions. They weren't using sanitary, they weren't doing proper needle disposal, like all of the things. So this was um, human, and I don't even want to call it human error because they knew better. They knew what they were doing wasn't right, and they knew they were unlicensed and that they shouldn't have been doing it. But it trended for a long time and increased stigma around, things like facials. We posted it in the chat. And that is one of those, I think that falls into a couple of categories. Like it's myths and truths about HIV, which are kind of what we were talking about in the beginning of the ways in which um, HIV is actually transmitted. Um, and it's frustrating when things like that happen because it gives the rest of us it adds rocks onto the mountain that we already have to climb. So it is definitely a thing. I mean, and facials are supposed to be relaxing and comfortable and all of the things, but facials often involve, even if we're not talking about the vampire thing, which weirded me out anyway. Um,
What was they
Giving
doing
plasma.
anyway?
So they take the blood. So my understanding of it, it's been years since the story happened. But they take the blood out, spin it, remove the plasma, and then I think they use needles to put the plasma back in. That's what I think it was. I'm not
Okay.
100% positive, so don't quote me. But that's what it reminded me of, is giving plasma. So if you used to ever donate a blood before your status, um, when you give plasma, they um, remove the blood, they spin it, they take the plasma out, and then they come and give you your blood back. So the first time I got it done, I didn't know that that's what the process was. I knew that I was giving blood with the intent of them using the plasma. So they finished withdrawing the blood and they left me still hooked up to the needle. So the girl walked by and I was like, hey, like, I'm done. Are you gonna unhook me? And she was like, oh, we're gonna give you the blood back. I was like, no, you're not. Like, what are you talking about? I don't need it back. She was like, no, we're going to, that's how it works. They take what they need and then they return. And girl, when they give you when they put it back in, you literally can feel it because, you know, your blood circulates. I could literally feel it go from where it was down to my fingertips and then coming back
Stop
as
it.
it, because it was cold coming in and then it gradually warmed back up to my body temperature
Stop.
as it is the weirdest freaking sensation. But that's kind of the idea around the vampire, and it's supposed to make you more youthful and all of those things. I'm
Oh,
not
Joe, you ain't need that anyway. You ain't need
right.
that, right? And then I saw Maria had joined, and Maria, she was saying that anything that had anything to do with HIV, face fillers, Botox, she had us. Because I never like envisioned that I would, because that always was rich people stuff to me, you know. But it seems like those types of things are becoming um more accessible to folks as we go on. Like it looked like you could put stuff on payment plans, and they got doctors on Instagram
Literally.
and stuff.
Hmm.
So it seemed more accessible. So like, oh, okay. So how would I handle that? Like if I went into the doctor, would I like, you know, and what I probably, if I was going to go get some, I probably would start within community first to see, you know, Maria probably would be my best reference to, you know, what would I expect when I go in here? Is it anything that I should be telling them? Does living with HIV impact what this surgery or procedure would look like? Like, should have you ever experienced any type of stigma in those spaces? I like going in with that type of information to help my brain better predict, I guess, what to expect. But that's so hurtful because I know if I went in, it's gonna be one of the what they call a mommy makeover or some joint. So I want to look nice and I want to feel nice, and is between the thing that is in my head and the thing that I actually want coming to fruition, it's like this whole group of people that I have to go through, and whether that's a desk person or the actual provider themselves, the people coming in to take the blood pressure and stuff. Um,
Yeah. um you said going to the community, and that triggered me to think that research is really important, right? Like talking to peers who have had the work done, they can make recommendations about who might be friendly to people who are living with HIV, or who might be understanding to people living with HIV. Um, I have had a dentist refuse to see me because I, you know, was trying to do the right thing and disclose my status. One of the worst experiences I've ever
wait,
had.
so now this
And
a dentist and a OBGYN.
so the dentist just, you know, I don't like, that's a whole other conversation. The dentist wasn't a terrible, like horrible experience. The
Okay.
worst experience I've ever had was disclosing my status when I was in nursing school and having my instructor act a whole asshole. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. Act a whole fool. We need to put ourselves on a delay so we can beat me out in the future. Um, but nonetheless, uh, stigmatizing experience. And so I say that to say our community is a great place to lean into for us to be able to do research and find out, you know, who might be more understanding about status and about dealing with the stigma that comes with living with HIV. When I'm in doctors' offices and medical spaces now, I'm almost defiant about disclosing my status, even though it gives me horrible, horrible anxiety. Because, like I was saying earlier, you're gonna get this work. I'm gonna teach you a lesson. Either you're gonna surprise me by being super cool and already knowing what's going on, or I'm gonna teach you a lesson for the next person that might come in behind me. And I kind of feel like it's the same thing for beauty spaces. When we're able to educate people in a way where they get it, then they really get it. You know, I think Joe had mentioned something about like getting your hair done and, going to a cosmetologist and um, those things. There's no body fluids are not the specific bodily fluids that you can acquire HIV from or that transmit HIV are not present when you're getting your hair done. So what difference does it make if I'm living with HIV or not? Right? That's not a situation that I feel like we should ever have to disclose. But if you choose to, make sure you're prepared to have the conversation about what HIV is. And I think that that's another really important aspect is that we should know as much as we want to hold about HIV, right? Transmission, what U equals U means, um, a little bit about why we haven't found a cure for HIV yet, so that we can speak from an educated place. Education gives you confidence. Knowing what you're talking about gives you confidence. And that confidence is reflected onto whomever it is that you're seeking services from, right? If they feel like you know what you're talking about, and you can explain it in a way that makes sense, it may, serve to settle some of their fears and serve to make them feel a little bit better. Not that that's our job or our responsibility, but I always remember when I get tired or I'm frustrated or I feel like, "Damn, like, why do I have to be the one?" And the little voice in my head always says, so that the next person doesn't have to. So it'd be complicated.
Well, y'all
Um,
be doing
I'm not,
everything. I see Joe. Sorry, she talking about dermaplating and derma rollers. Y'all do everything. I gotta Google some of this when we get off.
that part. And the other thing that that comes up when we're talking about Joe is international. She's in a whole other country. She's in India. Um, Rules and criminalization varies from state to state, from country to country. And so it's also really important that you are aware and at least have a minimal working knowledge about what the criminalization laws are in your state. Because if you are in, my mama used to say, ass backwards kind of environment or state, where they have antiquated HIV laws, or in a country where they have antiquated HIV laws, then you might want to be familiar on what those look like so that you can make educated assumptions about what that might mean for you going to get a tattoo, or what that might mean for you going to get a vampire facial, or going to have a procedure done, getting a breast augmentation or a BBL or any of those things. And so the layer that HIV adds to everything is super frustrating and it can be overwhelming. But I think if you're able to break it down into parts and pieces and not try to tackle everything all at once, um, it makes it a little bit easier. And then you always have that repository in the back of your mind to be able to help you um, deal with situations. Not every situation is the same, but at least if I know to tell someone that HIV doesn't survive outside of the body, right? Then that helps them to understand um, that I'm not a danger to them. So we all should be learning a little bit. Not everybody has to know everything about everything. I don't feel like I need to know everything about everything. But as a nurse, I find value in knowing a little bit about a lot so that I can help people and guide people. And the reality is, I know it's a little nerdy, but the HIV virus is fascinating to me. I will never be a scientist. I'll never, let me not say, I started to say I'll never be a researcher, but I actually am a researcher now. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? But that's not something that I ever would have thought. But HIV brought that into my life. Um, so I say that to say I'm not a scientist, but I do like to know a little bit about the virus, and I am fascinated about the way that it works. You know, the life cycle and how it works in the body, um, and it's important. It looks like Angela, I hope I'm saying that right, um, is saying education gives you confidence. 100%. Knowledge empowers us to advocate for ourselves and for others. Absolutely. And even if you don't want to advocate for others, I've written this a few times. As a woman living with HIV, even if you only ever advocate for yourself, whether it's in a doctor's office, in a massage parlor, in a facial studio, even if you're only advocating for yourself, you absolutely are advocating for the women that might come behind you. And so that little piece is important, I think.
I was thinking, like, absolutely that confidence, because I know that I can't do nothing, y'all, in the middle of Planet Fitness. So that's exactly where I'm gonna be at, because I deserve to be here in the middle of the gym in my wellness space. I know going to go get my little massage. I'm no threat to y'all. I saw Joe put something earlier too about the pimple on the back. I don't need y'all popping all them pimples on my back and stuff. Just give me the regular massage, get my muscles loosened again. We cool. Um, I know other wellness spaces that are like, retreat spaces, things that we can do that other people do to take care of themselves. We deserve to be there, and having that education, knowing when there's actually a chance of a transmission, and not like, no, I'm saying this with my chest. Go ahead and rub my feet, please, because I'm paying you to do this service for me. Thank you. And
Mm-hmm.
then I like when Angela also said earlier, that learning from other people's experiences, that definitely give me confidence. Maria talking about she put it on every form she go into, and she seemed like she ain't had no issues. That might make me think, twice about what I'm willing to put down on the form the next time I'm asked to put down a form. Thank you for keeping up with the comments, because I know I'm jumping everywhere. But I really appreciate the folks that have had a chance to get into the comment section to engage with today's episode. I'm going to try to go grab our evaluation link for today, because conversations like this are rooted in community. We here,
Yeah.
we're very close to ears and feet close to the ground, and
Yeah.
seeing the things that are coming up in the community, knowing what we're going through in our own personal lives, out the mouths of women who are living with HIV, only are we able to only to be able to bring, these conversations to us. I'm trying to get the link, but I can't multitask real good. It
Look
says,
at Joe. I listen, you get the link. I'm gonna do the multitask part for you.
okay,
Cause look at Joe knowing that we have these sessions on the fourth Thursday of every month. Come through, Joe. And so yes, we go live on Facebook once a month, and we talk about all of the things related to women and HIV. And the conversations are always fascinating. Marie, so we would love to have you join us when we do that. You can follow us on our social media at the Well Project. We're on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, although we don't use our TikTok account a lot. Let's, just being honest about that. And here on Facebook and on YouTube.
yes.
And so I do want to say, um, Joe said something about she realized the girl was going to do it with her nails and she told her to stop. I want to reinforce the fact that when we are looking out for what's happening in spaces, in beauty salons and being aware, it's not just about the HIV. There are other things that can happen through carelessness in salons, right? So you should be aware of clean tools because, again, like I said at the top, hepatitis is very hardy and hepatitis does survive. And so hepatitis is something, even though we're living with HIV, we don't need hepatitis on top
I
of
don't
that,
know that
right? So we want to be
point.
aware of that. Even though we're living with HIV, there are other things that can happen. People act like HIV is the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to somebody, and it's not. I'm not willing to go get an infection and get sepsis and end up in the hospital because you're careless about cleaning your tools, right? Because you're careless about um, taking care of the people that you serve and the capacity in which you serve them, whatever that office looks like. And so um, I don't want us to get so busy protecting people from HIV that we forget that we need to protect ourselves and keep ourselves whole, healthy, and hearty, and being able to do all of the things that we need to do.
And that's in my mind, that's in my body, that's in my spirit. And I'm going to access these wellness spaces because I need it. I need it. I deserve it. I want it. There's no reason for you to keep me away from it. Once again, thank y'all. We're coming up to the end. I really appreciate it having such a candid conversation because what I really hope is that it inspires, one woman to go out and seek that service that she may have thought that HIV said she had to stay away from, or empower another woman to feel like I I know what I'm talking about. I can go do this for myself. I am Ebony, is okay that you missed it because our sessions are uploaded. We are live on Facebook and YouTube right now. We had a little technical glitch with Instagram today, but it will be available for viewing on YouTube afterwards. And it is uploaded also to our A Girl Like Me live podcast, which you can find on most streaming services. So if you don't want to look at our beautiful faces. You could just listen to our beautiful voices on podcast. And we would love to have you there. And you can share, send this as wide and as far as your network reaches because it's important that HIV does not make women feel like they can't still be that beautiful, sexy, wanted, desired, individual for themselves and for others. And I don't know, part of that for me is get my nails done. I don't care, like you said, if I had to choose between eating and my nails, at one point it might have been my nails.
Come through with all of the adjectives. I'm saying, like, we have the right and ability to be all of those things. I tend to do my own hair. I've done that for a long time. I go get it cut. My little sister does a great job. I've started doing my own nails, but that has nothing to do with me not wanting to walk into a shop. It's just a practical decision, a financial decision. I'm gonna get my nails done. I'm gonna get my toes done. I'm gonna go get a facial. I have a subscription for a massage because I believe in getting the massage and the self care things. And so, just to reinforce your point, no woman living with HIV should feel like she doesn't deserve or can't take advantage of all of the things that she was able to before her diagnosis or during her diagnosis. Go get your stuff done and only disclose if it makes sense to you to disclose. Um, Make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do and using their universal precautions.
Well, well, you heard it. That was our mic drop. Thank you for joining us for episode 46 of A Girl Like Me Live. Really excited about episode 47, which will be happening at the end of September. Keep an eye out for that, but that'll be on Bone Health with another member from our community. Thank you all again for joining, and I hope that you have a great, great day.
Be well.